Welcome everybody to our Chocolatey Software Coffee Break live stream for April. We run 2 live streams every month, and the first and first Thursday. This live stream is the Chocolatey Community Coffee Break, where we talk about the chocolate community, how you can get involved and talk to key community and Chocolatey team members. On the first Thursday of the month, we have the Chocolatey Product Spotlight, where we spotlight chocolate products, recent releases, and important features for those releases as well. You can get notifications of new content or announcements by following or subscribing to us on Discord, Twitter, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. I want to make that list even longer, so we'll have to subscribe to more things. But basically, we're on all those social things, and you can find those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. In previous community live streams, we've chatted with members of the Chocolatey team, and we continued that today by chatting to Chocolatey Software founder and creator of Chocolatey CLI, Rob Reynolds. My name is Paul Broadworth, and I'm the Technical Engineering Manager here at Chocolatey Software. And my co-host today is, as usual, Gary Ewan-Park. Gary, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Gary Ewan-Park. I am a Principal Software Engineer here at Chocolatey. I work with a team of developers working on pretty much all of the chocolate components. So all the good things and the bad things are down to us.
It's Gary's fault, basically, is what we're saying. Yep. All of it. Thanks, Gary. As usual, we have a list of questions tailored for our guests, so we're just going to jump straight into those questions. And Rob is on the screen now. So, Rob, very first question. Tell us a bit about yourself. Where do you come from? What do you do?
My name is Rob. Gosh, I come from Kansas. There are tornadoes here. I've never had to experience one. So yay me. What do I do? I created chocolate a long time ago, and now they don't let me touch code. So I used to code, but I don't anymore. I just help keep things rolling on the business side. So I actually have a background in business administration. That's what I got my degree in school. And then I switched to software because software was interesting to me.
Oh. So the kind of, well, following on from that then, so how did you get into IT? What was it? What made you make that move then from business administration into IT then? What was the turning point?
Oh, great question. So when I was in school, I, like most people, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and spent a lot of time going to trying different things. And one of the things that I tried a couple of times was programming, and kind of enjoyed that. And then at some point in college, I decided to go for I guess it's a minor or a concentration. So even though it was in management, I was concentrating on the information system side. And I actually was finishing college and thinking I was going to be a DBA. And I got my first job as a software developer for the state of Kansas and kind of fell in love with it.
As we kind of described at the beginning, Rob, founder of Chocolatey Software and the creator of Chocolatey CLI. When did the idea of Chocolatey hit you, Chocolatey CLI, and how did it happen? How did it all come about, I suppose, is the big question.
This is going to be interesting. So I worked, I was doing open source work, and I was we were building these automation tools called the Chuck Norris framework, kind of fun. But one of the things that happened to me is that I had a hard drive go out. And so I had to rebuild the machine. Well, the new hard drive also went out within 2 weeks. And so I was like, oh, I get to rebuild it again. And so then I started looking at well, is there a way to automate these installers so I'm not sitting here going next, and started really diving into, using scenarios for that. And I thought, oh, this is great. And so one of the projects that I was working on came, a little bit past that time, was something called N.U.P.K.G, which is a package manager for, libraries. And the short term new was for Nubular, which was a project called like Gems for .NET. It was basically the idea of it. And this sounds like ancient now that we have NuGet and everything. But way back before that, all of that, we had nothing. And people would go and get their libraries for development by going and downloading things and forget about keeping them up to date. Now, that was a long time occurrence of having to really work and manually do that. And so we saw, the Ruby Gems community was doing its thing. And I was working with a group that was doing that. And so we got together, and out came a collaboration with Microsoft where the NuGet project came out of, was what that developed into. And so NuGet was never going to, well, at least that was the understanding. When asked where NuGet was going, it was going to maintain a focus as a library package manager. And because of our work with New and having some of these tools, if you will, up on Gemcutter or rubygems.org, and being asked to, hey, those need to migrate at some point off of there, started looking at options on what we could do. And so I met with a group of the folks at the MVP Summit. I think this was 2011 MVP Summit, and we're standing around and we're like, what if NuGet managed machine level packages? And there is a joke that, well, that wouldn't be those wouldn't be vanilla NuGet packages; they'd be chocolatey. So that's where the name comes from. And so Chocolatey NuGet became a thing about a month later. A lot of nights, and it where it started, where it is now, are completely different. At the time, I was looking at it, it's like, okay, I had at that point had left the company that I was with and moved to a new company, and went through this process of doing this automation thing again. And I was like, what if there were some tools out there that would allow somebody to sit down and pair program with somebody like, oh, you don't have Notepad++, you don't have this thing, right? And I know, ancient. It'd be, oh, you don't have VS Code. Can I do something, right? Can I run a command? And we get that. And so, just Choco install, VS Code. And then in, 30 seconds, something's installed, and we're able to actually do something productive versus spend half a day setting up a machine so that we can be productive to do pair programming. And so it just kind of went from there. And it became this thing like, well, we're using PowerShell, so we can install anything. And that's right when it clicked, is whatever night at 3 a.m. that was. In the beginning, it was like, we can use PowerShell to install software. This is great. And that's kind of where it came from.
One of the things I was going to ask was, you mentioned the Chuck Norris framework. And you don't know this question, but I was going to ask, everybody has a favorite Chuck Norris joke. Do you have one?
Yeah. So when Chuck Norris jumps in water, Chuck Norris doesn't get wet. Water gets Chuck Norris.
There you go. So moving on so from that early starting point then, so we've got you as a pair programmer installing applications, and now today we've got the Chocolatey community repository that is, I think it's fair to say that it's growing and growing and growing. We've had some recent growing pains with the sheer number of packages that we have in the repository. So when was it, after you created the Chocolatey community repository, when was it that you realized that kind of this was a thing and there was a community around it in there? Because I think it's fair to say that you maintained all the original packages because they were the tools that you were using. So at what point did it kind of transition from you being the maintainer of the packages to other folks coming on board and doing stuff?
Honestly, so way back 2011. So let's say Chocolatey came out as first versions. It was not the tool it is today. It was not very good. Let's be honest. The outside of it and the UI of it, the way that people had their user experience with it, not a lot has really changed on that, but a lot of the back end has changed to make it a much better tool. It started getting noticed in the community. I wasn't actually the first person to even blog about it. I didn't blog about it for like 6 to 8 months. And so other people started noticing there was this tool that could actually install software. And oh yeah, it's for Windows, and it's sort of like apt-get. Like it's this thing that's sort of like these Linux package managers. And it just kind of caught like wildfire during that 6 to 8 months. And it was so much that on NuGet.org, where some of these packages were going before they were moved to another repository based on that NuGet repository, that was became the Chocolatey Community Repository. That happened in September of 2011. And I think there was roughly 200 packages at that point, of which I think I probably had about 130 of those. And I think about a year later is when I really noticed it was taking off. So about 2013, somewhere maybe in the summer, it had grown to over 1,500 packages by that point. And I was like, this is going to be a thing. And this is getting a lot of questions on the community side. It seems like this is something that was sorely needed. And so this is going to be a thing. And so I think it was in the summer of 2013 where I really noticed it needed to move from what I considered an experiment to an actual experience.
Yep.
Chocolatey CLI is, actually, I'll go back a little bit. A lot of people don't know Chocolatey has a commercial option, a commercial version, a commercial offering. A lot of people, when you talk to about that, are not aware of that, because the first introduction to it is Chocolatey CLI, so the open source, it's free and open source tool. Where did the demand for a kind of commercial licensed version come from?
That's an interesting question. So one of the things that we had was this community repository, and again, we're offering this free service, and it's actually really, really good service, but it's not free for us to actually offer this back-end service because we have real infrastructure costs and the like. And so we had sponsorships at the time, and rolling in from 2013 to 2014, we saw this thing growing by leaps and bounds. And so we're kind of leaning on our folks that are helping sponsor some of our infrastructure. And like, hey, can we go up a little bit? Can we get a little bit more infrastructure around this? Because we're starting to see things are needing, it's starting to slow down. We're trying to keep it, moving at a decent rate. And so at that point, it was like, well, we can't rely on sponsors forever. If this thing takes off, we need to be able to self-sustain it. And we're starting to see questions coming in the Google forum about, hey, I'd like for it to do this. And so we're starting to see not just developers using this tool, we're starting to see system admins using this tool, and their needs are slightly different. They're not maintaining, like, I'm just trying to get, my work laptop or my work system and keep it up to date with software. They're like, I got thousands of machines and I need a tool that's going to help me be able to test things and, test my deployments and be able to, repeat, have a nice repeatable process. And something like a package manager is really going to help, manage that software for me and be able to push it out to all these systems. And so that's when kind of the concept was born, is we had a need to be able to self-sustain the infrastructure that we're offering for the free services. But also, we saw some use cases where organizations, where the system admins and other folks in that area would need help. And we knew that we're now targeting two different audiences. And so we were like, okay, so when we're working with organizations and organizations are trying to do something, it made sense to us. Like, when I'm doing it, I'm working on open source, that's out in the open, that should be free, right? When I'm an organization, I'm trying to maintain my infrastructure, there's definite value that's being passed along with the tool. And so it makes sense that that is where we focus those commercial efforts.
And that was the same sort of time frame when you did the Kickstarter, right? That was the kind of the incubator, if you like, for the commercial offering. Is that right?
Yes. And so that was 2014. and we prepared for that for a while, because we had seen Kickstarters, not a lot of them, when you had a Windows product or a .NET type application that you're trying to do something, not a lot of those were very successful on Kickstarter. And for folks that don't know about Kickstarter, the way Indiegogo was a thing, but it wasn't much of a thing at that point. So there was only Kickstarter. And so Kickstarter was, you say, here's the goal we want to meet, right? And if you are $1 under that goal, you don't get any of it. So you got to get the goal to get the money. And so we tried to be a little conservative about where we wanted to be, but also realistic. And so it was, I like to call it the graph of anxiety, as you saw how many people were getting us toward that funding. We actually funded in the last 2 days. And that was it was a very anxious time, a very scary time, because it was like, well, if this isn't successful, then we'll have to go back and rethink, like, is this something that people really need? Is this something that people find use for? And they of course, they overwhelmingly answered that question. This is something that folks that need, and they want to see it succeed. So we knew we had a pretty good community for sure.
You backed
I remember
Kickstarter
chipping
guy,
in.
didn't you?
Yeah, I remember chipping into the Kickstarter.
I backed it as well. Yeah,
I got the hoodie.
We back when.
I got the hoodie somewhere. Yeah.
I got a hoodie much longer afterwards, but
You got a hoodie right out of a box in here.
I did. Yeah, exactly. I think it was the last one as well. Yeah.
But that was very much the chocolatey experience that you referred to, because that was the tagline of the Kickstarter. That's what was on the hoodie. Yeah. Okay, so in the interviews we've done before, where we've been talking to moderators and maintainers, typically talk about the moderation aspect of Chocolatey Community Repository, because all of those people are involved in it. They've been at the forefront of trying to keep that queue down, etc. But obviously, you were the person who instigated the moderation process on Chocolatey Community Repository. So kind of what was the driving force behind that, and why did you inflict this on the poor moderators? What was it that was necessary for that, from your point of view, when it first started?
Honestly, we probably turned it on a little too early. I don't think that we were quite ready for it, but to be taken seriously, I think that we needed to turn it on. And I say taken seriously, to give people a trust that this has gone through some paces, and that when we have something that's showing up on this community repository, it's been tested, it works for what we know and what we've tested, and it's also gone through some sort of virus checking, and it's had a human that said, I looked at it and I don't see anything else crazy that this is trying to do that would be bad, like format C or something that could be in a package. So we didn't have anything that we were necessarily concerned about at that point. We were trying to plan for, or I was trying to plan for, if this thing becomes more successful, we need to have these checks in place. And it wasn't like I was trying to invent something with moderation. It was more of, well, what do they do on in the Debian side? What do they do over here, right? And so it wasn't new to have some sort of moderation on an EPEL or a community offered repository, or a repository that is official for a distribution in the Linux side, right? That was very much a thing. And if we were trying to lean towards having more of that, we had to look at why that was, right? Why is it that they had these things? And it really came down to giving people that a little bit more peace of mind when they're using this, that we've checked, this is coming from the official location. We've checked over the packaging. It is not doing anything differently than what they would do if they went and downloaded it themselves from that official location and installed it. And if the official distribution place allowed for those binaries to be redistributed, they could be put in the package, but we need some sort of way for people to say, how do I verify that the checksum of the files here matches the checksum of the thing back over here, right? And so we put that in there for moderators, but it's also for those very security conscious folks that are using this community. And we're actually super stringent, as we all know, very stringent in our standards. And I feel it's because we have to be, because if we have a misstep, Chocolatey has a misstep, you get a lot of people that are like, see, I told you, you should have waited for this other company to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day, there was folks that were in and around the community, like you'll remember Tom One, who was very particular about the way that packages were created, and I don't think he stuck around long enough for package moderation to kick in properly, but he was a big community contributor who wanted things done in a certain way and wanted standards applied across all packages, and it's just something that wasn't really feasible at the time. But with package moderation and the package validation rules, we started putting some of those things in play. So I don't think he's part of the community anymore, but it'd be interesting to see what his thoughts on it were as
Yeah.
as it currently stands.
Yeah, I think he was big a proponent into a lot of the initial guidelines and stuff that we put in there, because we were like, okay, this is what we think, and we have perspective, coming from other moderators like Tom, and saying, hey, these are what I'd like to see. And he was there in the beginning with the moderation, but it was a big task because, like I said, I think we turned it on a little too early. We did not have the services in the back end to do a lot of the stuff automatically for us. So it was really, the onus was completely on the moderator to go, okay, I need to go test this thing. I need to submit the binaries to VirusTotal or check them through a virus scanner and make sure everything's okay here, and do all of this stuff. That we have automation that does a lot of that for us before the gets to a human, right? So at the end of all of that, it has to pass all that. It gets to the human, and the human has a few checks to do, and hopefully by then, because and one of the things I didn't mention is we have what is called our and most people know, so we have the validator, and the validator does all of what I call like the unit tests. It does all the quality checks, so it's ensuring that the package that goes up to that community is up to a minimum standard for what we expect a package to be, and then from there it gets tested. And I don't remember the order. I don't know what the order is now. And of course, there's virus scanner. And one of the things that you guys did, which is amazing, that I think we've been one for a very long time, is the package differ, which actually says, here's the difference between this version and the last version, right? So that really speeds up the process, because a moderator says, well, we approved the last one, and we can look at the differences and go, good to go.
Great.
Yeah, it makes that process by the human a lot quicker, because as you said, if they've approved the last one and the only thing it's changed is, let's say, the version number, and maybe the URL has got the version number changed in it as well, then you go, well, that's it, that's good to go. It's good to go last time, nothing changed, good to go this time. And it makes that moderation so much
and it's already
quicker.
past virus checking, so we know that's good too. So
yeah, and the virus package verifier as well, doing the install and uninstall, so we know that works as well. So yeah, it makes package differ makes life a lot easier. So actually creating Chocolatey software, you've obviously got a good handle on the next question, which will be, what are the three things that Chocolatey software, the company itself, what does it stand for? What are those three things that you really think it stands for?
I think the big one is automation. Like that's probably number one, is that we want to make Windows a better environment for the consumers, giving folks something that actually gives them a little easier use, I guess is the thing. On the company side, one of the big things in our culture is to be humble, right? And so I think that's another thing that's big that the company stands for, is that, we've done these crazy big things, and, we're still people. Like, we're very approachable, and, anybody that's at our organization, we have a very warm culture, and I feel like we're family friendly too. So I think those are really the three big things. And if I sum that up on the consumer side, I think that we have something that solves a problem, right? And it does it in a slightly unique way, but when you really step back, it's probably the only way that problem could have been solved, given all the constraints and everything.
So looking back over your, I guess, 12 years working on Chocolatey, whether that was the open source version or more specifically the PowerShell version, the C# version, starting a company. Your roles obviously changed, and you kind of touched on this earlier, but what is your day-to-day role now within the company compared to maybe what it was when it first started? How has that changed, and what's good, what's bad, etc.?
The bad is I don't get to code anymore. And I thought I was pretty good at it. You'll probably have different people on the team that may argue with that, and I'll just say no comment. But I feel like that's the down on that. I mean, most people go into to start a company or do something thinking, these are the things I love doing. I'm going to get to keep doing them, and eventually you do have to make a decision. And so what I do now, I think there's the day-to-day management of stuff. I help manage some of the business stuff on a day-to-day, and try to, I don't know if I do a very good job, but I try to be a coach for the folks that I work directly with, and help them make decisions that I don't need to make. So pass them down, and then do make the decisions that I do need to make. And so the other thing is, I don't think that day to day I have the same responsibilities, right? So my job shifts on day to day, and that's kind of cool. And that's a big aspect of being a CEO, is that you do different things on a daily basis. But there are some things that have a nice common thread. And a lot of that is I still get to help people. I'm basically helping the people that I'm directly working with, but I still get to help people, and I like that. So I think that still is a great thing. So
I was actually going to follow up with that, as if you to pick the development or the CEO role, but I won't go there. That's an unfair question to ask. So that's kind of our main questions wrapped up. But we do have some common questions we ask everybody that comes on to the live stream, and they're kind of in honor Richard Campbell, who asked the same sort of questions in his podcast as well. So the very first one of that is, what is your favorite coding language and why? It's kind of an unfair question, so I think we all know the answer to that, but let's ask it anyway.
Well, I'm biased. I started out, so just give folks a little bit. Start out with Visual Basic. I've done C#. I've done Ruby as professionally as a career. Not Ruby on Rails. Most people tell you Ruby on Rails is great or Ruby's great. They're talking about Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Windows is something. But I think, and PowerShell, that's another language, and probably a few other languages I've just kind of picked up. And like, I can read Python, and I kind of like the way it's constructed, but I think that my favorite is still gonna be C#. I've worked with it so long. I know the tools, and I can be very successful with trying an idea very quickly. So I'm probably going to keep leaning back to that language. Having learned multiple languages gives me the ability to sort of pick up new languages quicker or try to reason about them. But I still like C#.
I can understand that.
Fair.
Makes sense in my head too.
Well, but the PowerShell one, Gary, could you understand that? Or
I mean, I
we
don't
not
get
go
to write
down that road?
PowerShell. I don't get to write PowerShell on the team. So I can say that I can read it. But yeah, I don't get to write PowerShell. There's other better folks on the team that do that side of things for us. So it's all good. Where was I? So yeah, when you are coding, when you get a minute to do coding, then or thinking back to when you were predominantly coding, what were you coding in? Where did you spend most of your time, and what did you like about it? What did you hate about it? So yeah, where did you spend your time?
When I was coding, there wasn't really I mean, VS Code was coming, but it didn't really have a lot of stuff around it. So it was always Visual Studio is where I spent a lot of my time. When I was doing other languages like Ruby and my brain lost me. PowerShell, I was in other IDs, and I can't even think of the names of them now. It's been that long. but PowerShell there was a really interesting tool early on that kept you out of ISE, and I never really liked ISE anyway, so I thought it was a pretty good product. I don't even know if it's still around. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's been so long. But no, I think I spent most of my time in Visual Studio, and that's because I did a lot with C#, and I was most comfortable in Visual Studio. And what did I like about it? ReSharper. I really liked having a tool that could help me move much quicker, because C# has a lot of ceremony. That's probably the only downside to C# is it does have a lot of ceremony that goes around things. But once you can work around that very quickly with some tools, it comes really well. What did I not like about Visual Studio? It required a gaming machine to really be productive in. And the companies I worked in before, Chocolatey Software, they didn't always give you the best laptop. So they're like, oh, we're going to hire you. We like your skills. Oh, here's a laptop that barely moves. Oh, thanks. Now be productive.
I remember there was who was it? It was Mark Rendell in the community, not the Chocolate community specifically, but Mark Rendell had a spreadsheet that if you wanted to request an updated laptop for you could plug in how long your build took in terms of minutes, and then depending on how many CPUs you had, how much memory you had, etc., it would then give you a cost per build. And then you could say if you got another computer that was X amount more CPU, it would then shave this amount of time off your build, and then it would obviously save the company this amount of money because then you're more productive across all of it. So he would give you this spreadsheet, you would fill it in, you would go to your manager and say, look, can I have a bigger laptop because it's going to save you this over this however many months. Whether that worked or not, I don't know, but I know he did have a spreadsheet that you could fill in and take to your manager.
That's awesome.
So for the next question we ask everybody, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. Gary has no idea what I'm going to do. Neither does Rob, to be fair. And I'm hoping it's going to work because I have a really wide monitor and sharing my screen isn't always the easiest thing. But I'm hoping that at least comes across. So what we had in the past was an actual whiteboard, which I still have, but the pen was running out. So I thought, you know what, let's make it a digital board.
So rather than buy a new pen, you thought you would
effectively, yes.
Nice.
I thought I would make it digital. So if I zoom in a little bit more, so the question is effectively, Rob, what is the correct way to pronounce N.U.P.K.G?
Anybody that's watched any of my videos knows that I pronounce it N.U.P.K.G.
So that would be 5-2 then.
Yeah, and
for that one.
I'm pretty sure that it was, some of the folks on the NuGet team that decided it should be N.U.P.K.G instead. Years after we'd all been saying new package.
I thought it was just Gary that decided that.
No, I heard it first from Damien Edwards as well.
Damien Edwards and David Fowler started calling it N.U.P.K.G at some point. Like, where did this come from?
I can't remember where it was, but it was a presentation that Damien did, and that's what I heard. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. And I stuck with it from there. So it wasn't me.
I actually thought you had made that up, Gary.
No, it wasn't me. I just adopted it in the same way that N.U.P.K.G is the correct pronunciation of S.N.U.P.K.G because it just rolls off the tongue. N.U.P.K.G. Yeah.
You did make that one up, though, didn't you?
No, I didn't. Yeah. I didn't make it up at all. It's just the natural pronunciation of the symbols package. So it's N.U.P.K.G. Yeah. Just saying.
Okay. But I think what we can all agree is that you're still losing on the.
Well, I think what we all can agree is that me and Steph need to get together and choose the next 3 guests is what needs to happen. So Steph and I will just do that. It's fine.
Okay. Good. Okay. Awesome.
So Corey's at least a definite because I'm part of Corey. I feed into his reviews. Kim's the same. So I get Kim and Corey on here. It's fine. It's all good. Rain might be a harder sell. Rain will be a harder sell.
They're on holiday that week, Gary. So
N.U.P.K.G. Anyway,
I
sorry.
think what we learned
next
from
question.
that is that I'm a cheapskate and didn't buy a new pen, but
I
decided
mean,
to
we
go
can
with the
get
digital
we
one
get
instead.
James on here and get a totally different answer.
Did we? Yeah,
could,
that's what the
absolutely.
question mark's for at the end. I think it's
No,
really
it's
just
the other.
James. Yeah. Oh, did I put other instead of question mark? So the board has question mark. Okay.
So moving on. What is your favorite chocolatey biscuit stroke cookie? So if you had to eat something, what would be your choice?
Cookie, huh? / biscuit. I really like Tim Tams. I don't eat a lot of cookies, but Tim Tams or Oreos. So I think if I had to be pushed toward one, it'd probably be the Tim Tams.
Sense.
And
Do you
I
want to
blame
explain
Glenn
that?
Sardi for that. I think it was Glenn. No, it was somebody at Puppet. Brought some in. I'm like, oh, these are interesting. And then I found that we sold them locally here in Kansas. And it's like, oh, it's an Australian. I don't want to call it delicacy, but it's an Australian type of cookie.
Is that the one that David Gardner also chose, where you could dip it into some tea or coffee and suck it up and have hot melted Tim Tam? Oh, it was a Tim Tam Slam, wasn't it? Is that what you called it? Yes, it was. There we go.
Yeah, Cody mentioned
Yes.
that in the chat.
Chloe's
Yeah.
mentioned, yes, I'm seeing that just now as well. Yes, I remember now. There you go.
Do you want to explain what a Tim Tam is? I know it's a biscuit or a cookie, but do you want to explain how it's made up?
So there's the graham crack. I don't know what it is like. So there's the hard part. It's not that hard. It's crunchy, and then it's surrounded typically by like maybe it's like caramel on one side, a little bit of caramel, depends on which one you get, and then chocolate coating on the outside. So
it's completely wrapped in chocolate.
Yes, it's like a little package.
It's like a chocolate package. It could be a chocolate package. Like the way we we didn't even
Perfect.
rehearse that. That's amazing. Okay, so we've got some questions to kind of wrap up at the end. We usually take 5 to 10 minutes to go through these. We've got plenty of time left on the stream. So the kind of first one of those is, what is your favorite memory regarding Chocolatey? So, for example, meeting folks in person for the first time, attending a conference, meeting me probably, maybe Gary, I'm not so sure about, but something like that.
I should have 2 favorite memories regarding Chocolatey. I think one of those was in 2015. And so this was, we'd done the Kickstarter in 2014, passed all of that, and went to meet with an organization. Can't say it was I was with Puppet, and we went to meet with an organization, and they were big fans of Chocolatey. And that's when my wife took notice, and she said, "Oh, this is really a thing." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And then she kind of got on board, right? And she was like, "I understand. I can actually take this organization, understand, and they like this product, and so I get it. It's a thing now." And so that was probably one of my favorite. And the other one is second time I went to London, and I was going to London to this conference. I forget what the name of it is at the moment. It's not coming to me, but it was this in 2017? And I was going there, and I was going to meet somebody, and we were going to stay in a flat together for an entire week, having never met each other before. And if we got along, it was going to be great, and if not, it's going to be a bad deal. And so that was Gary. So we had chatted online, all this stuff, and we finally met in person at this conference. And he'll tell you that I had a little bit of jet lag. There was a point where my alarms were going off, and the door was closed, and so he had no idea. Like, is he asleep? Whatever. It's banging on the door to wake me up. I think that was quite interesting, quite a fun experience.
It was interesting. So initially, it was like a little like a tentative knock, because it was like knock, 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 thinking that might be enough to rouse him from his sleep. That didn't work. So then I thought I'll do it a bit louder. Nothing, because I could hear his alarm going off, and I could hear it from outside the door, and it was going off. And I got to the point where I was literally banging on the door, and nothing came out. And I'm looking at my watch, because we'd arranged to meet some folks down at the conference. So it was the WinOps conference is the one that we were attending, and I'm like, we're going to be late. And I'm like, what do I do? Because at this point, I'm like, is he sleeping? Is he dead? Is he run off into the street in the middle of the night, sleepwalking or something? There's all these things going through my head. But yeah, eventually, you woke up and we got arranged and we got down to where we needed to be. But yeah, it was a interesting first meet. Let's put it that way.
And we saw Banksy.
We did. Yes, that's right.
It's pretty sweet.
That was on the walk there, wasn't it? Because yeah, it was a Airbnb, and then we walked around to the conference area from there. Yeah, that's right. Remember that.
Yeah, it was really cool. So, I hadn't seen one in person before, and of course, by the time we showed up, there was police officers surrounding.
That's right. They cordoned it off.
Yeah.
I must have a photo of that somewhere in my collection. But yeah, that was because we met in a tube station. You came off the tube from the airport. I met you there, and then we walked to the Airbnb from there. So yeah, it was a while ago, but yes, good times.
So yeah, 2 memories.
I was just reading the comment from Corey in the chat. So the next one, where we at? What is the one thing that you are most proud of in your career? So that doesn't necessarily mean chocolatey. That could be somewhere else. But what is the thing that you're most chocolatey? What is the thing that you're most proud of in your career?
I think having a successful company. When I was a kid, I always wanted to do something that made a difference. And as I got a little older, I was like, I want to go in and run a business. And when I got hired at a certain organization, they're like, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? And I straight up told them, I was like, running my own business. That's probably not the question that you should tell like an HR person or somebody in the hiring, like not working for you. But that's basically what I said. And they still hired me. So that was good. And it took more than 10 years before I got out and started a business after going to work for them. So it was a long time. See, at least 12, 13, 14 years maybe. But yeah. And having it be about something that makes a difference for people. I think that's, we can see what Chocolatey can do as far as making a difference in the lives of folks that are using it, because, certain folks, what they had before is manual effort or tools that weren't very good. And so now they having something like Chocolatey can actually allow people to get their work done and be able to get out of work and go do things like spend time with their family and other things. So I think that's what I'm most proud of, is being able to make Chocolatey successful and have Chocolatey be able to make a difference in folks' lives. Professionally, right? I have a lot of things that I'm proud of on the personal side.
So our kind of final wrap-up question. What does the future look like for Chocolatey Software, Chocolatey products, and you?
So that's actually a really good question. Not one I've had a lot of time to think of as in the context of this conversation. I think it's, we're going to continue to be consistent. Like we're going to continue to offer this free infrastructure that folks are going to be able to use. And so there'll be the Chocolatey open source side and free side. And we're going to continue to make that better. That was one of the tenets of starting the company, was being able to hire people to work on that full time. And so we've been doing that. And we're going to continue to invest in our commercial products and look at what people need. And that's what we've done up to now, is we find out what folks need and we build a solution that helps solve those problems. And I think we're going to see more of the same in the next 5-10 years. And so what does that mean for Chocolatey Software? It probably means some new offerings. There are things that we've been wanting to offer for a while, and we're kind of working our way towards, right? And we're going to get there. And it's, one of those things I think is going to make a huge difference for a lot of organizations. And that is, and I don't know how close we are to it or anything like that, but that is being able to offer a repository that organizations can simply opt in and use, right? When they're trying to, and so that the onus is not necessarily, oh, you got to build packages or go get packages that are prepared. It's like you can lean on us to have a set of packages that we can support and we can fix when there's problems. And it's, the community base is great. And I think we'll continue to build into that community base. But we also recognize that sometimes organizations need a higher level of support than we should expect people putting something up for free, like putting their free time into to produce. Like that they don't work for that company, they're not getting paid by that company, and so there's no reason to expect that a company should be able to come to them and say, "We need this fixed now." Right? That's the wrong expectation. But we do have there are organizations that will need that and do need that, and so we need to have some offering that they can also opt in and use. And I think that's going to be pretty big. And I thought that's going to be pretty big for probably 5 or 6 years, right? These things take time to do it right, and so is something that we are building towards, and we'll have it at some point in the future, or hope to have at some point in the future. What does it look like for me? Gosh, I think my role continues to shift and shape, and I feel like we're going to hire some more folks, and we're going to bring up some more leaders from within. And so it's going to give me an opportunity to look a little bit. I get to look into the future, right? And that's part of being the CEO, is doing the vision and being a visionary. But it's going to afford me the opportunity to do more of that at some point, and not be as involved on the day to day.
I think that was an awesome answer. I think the premium packages part that we've kind of talked about, for that is something, as you said, has been looked at for quite some time, and I think the key to that is we need to do it properly. Make sure that organizations, it fits what they need and fulfills those needs. So yeah. Is there any question that we didn't ask today that you wanted us to ask or thought we should have asked?
No, there might be questions on the live stream from some folks.
Well, this would be an opportunity if there are any questions that folks can put them in the chat. There was a comment there that we should maybe just address just while we're here. And it was about someone wanting to use Chocolatey GUI, and they thought that Chocolatey GUI wasn't part of the open source offering. But yeah, Chocolatey GUI absolutely is a free and open source product. It was originally one of the first integrations for Chocolatey. Chrissy, I forget his second name. Chrissy created the original Chocolatey Explorer, and then it got morphed into what it is now, Chocolatey GUI. So that's absolutely free. There is Steve, you mentioned in the chat room, there is an extension for Chocolatey GUI that is part of the commercial offering, but there's no cost associated with using Chocolatey GUI. So yeah, go ahead and install it and see what you can make of it.
Gary brought up a pretty interesting point there, is that for the folks that have been in the community for a long time, you've kind of seen Chocolatey, quote unquote, grow up a lot, right? There's been a lot of, feels like it's matured a lot as a product. We matured a lot as an organization. If you look at what it started at, it's like, here's where we started, here's how it's going, right? And then it's kind of night and day. I can't take credit for most of that. Like a lot of that, I got to put in some of the foundation, but it was bringing up people in like Gary, Stephanie, Paul, other folks that came in to work with us that really have been able to make Chocolatey and all the offerings what they are today. and could not have done that by myself without these people. So that's really been the big thing. Maybe that was another question. I don't know, but just like the website, there's no way I could have made it look that pretty. I mean, you saw my version from a long time ago, and if you haven't, there's a Wayback Machine.
If we could sum that up in one word, I think the word is beige.
Brown was the original one, wasn't it? It wasn't even beige, it was brown.
Was it brown? Oh, okay.
It was bad.
Sorry, it was functional. Let's
Yes.
Let's
Functional.
positive.
Yes,
Positive
it worked. It had a service on the back end, and that particular thing worked. It was not pretty. It had no polish, I guess.
I've got a blog post that I did for when Chocolatey GUI reached a certain number of downloads. I did a blog post that showed the changing face of Chocolatey GUI over the years. And I think Steph almost had a heart attack when she looked at some of the original versions of Chocolatey GUI. I think she still wants to change it. There's still things that she would like to change in there. But yeah, we're functional first, and then aesthetics second, I think, is where we've always historically been. So, but we're getting better at it.
There was another question in the chat, just at actually almost at the start. Somebody had asked they'd installed Chocolatey software, installed the Chocolatey software, tried with some simple commands like update some software. How can they improve on that? My suggestion was really going to be have a look at the documentation. Is probably the first area to have a look at. We've also, you're actually on YouTube watching us, so you could check out YouTube channels. A lot of videos on there about different parts of Chocolatey. But anybody else got any recommendations how someone could really start in Chocolatey? And where they should really start from?
I'd like to say our documentation really helps people when they're kind of getting started, but I don't think that it does. We have a lot of really good documentation for like, hey, once you kind of know what's going on, you get reference checks and all of that. And then we have some documentation. It's like, oh, you want to do the solution? Here's a high level, right? But really digging in like, hey, you're getting ready to use Chocolatey for the first time. I would love like an interactive shell that you could run in Chocolatey that kind of like does like the guide through. I think we had like one doc page that actually talks about like your first time using Chocolatey, but it hits a few things, and it doesn't dive in maybe as far as we would like it to now that because that was a long time ago. And the product has come quite a ways, and so there's a lot more that you can do with it now. And yeah, it'd be nice maybe for us to put some more what are they called, walkthroughs, right? Narrative type documentation where we're taking people through the process of learning how to use Chocolatey, being aware of what it can do. But I think you have it right, Paul. I think a lot of that's going to be found in videos. And not just videos that we've produced. You just go and you search for Chocolatey. You'll get some people like their first reaction to using it in videos, and you get people telling you about like the good, the bad, and those are kind of independent validation as well. Another place to get it, I think Gary has a really good video on YouTube that he's drawing, stick figures and things, and you get like the whole and really talking about, Chocolatey. I think it's towards organizations, but there could be more. And I think that's really good because it brings the explanation to a level that doesn't have to require somebody to have the technical background. And so it's, as I like to say, try to meet people where they are and then bring them along, right? And I think the videos do a pretty good job of that.
Awesome. Let me just check for no more questions. No more questions in the chat just now. So we're almost at time actually. Anyway, we've got 4 minutes left. So what we could do is we'll just kind of wrap up now. So yeah, thanks Rob for coming on today's live stream. I know we kind of chatted about you coming on before, so I'm glad we managed to kind of make it all work with your schedule. Thank you, Gary, for your co-hosting abilities today, and for your surprise at the digital version of the Board of Shame. So that was interesting.
Can you
And
DM me
thanks.
your address so I can send you a new pen, Paul? That's what I'll do. I'm going to go and buy you a pen. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah, when it wasn't until you mentioned that, you mean you did all that work because you didn't want to buy a pen. The two didn't. I didn't think about it like that. But that is a really good point. Yeah. But thanks to everybody for watching today. It was actually a really good stream. Really enjoyed it. So please follow us on Twitch and subscribe with the bell on YouTube. You'll get notifications when we actually do stream. Our next live stream is on the 18th of May, where we're going to swap out our usual Chocolatey Community Coffee Break with a product spotlight. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we have one on the first Thursday of the month, which is a product spotlight, and one on the third Thursday of the month, which is our community coffee break, which is this live stream. We were going to switch things around a little bit for May. There's a special announcement coming up in May. So please tune in for that. We'll be looking at Chocolatey CLI, Chocolate License Extension, Chocolatey GUI, and Chocolatey GUI License Extension, and Chocolate Agent as well. So that will be a really good stream. We're looking forward to that one. So thank you to everybody. We hope to see you then. Take care. And yeah, guys, if you get anything you want to say before we finish.
Not for me.
Okay.
Community's
Take
awesome.
care, everybody.
Thank you very much. Talk to you later.